My name is Keith Jones. I'm the Chairman of Trustees of a small charity called Hedgehog Helpline. We look after hedgehogs. Hedgehogs are in big trouble. Their numbers are decreasing all the time, quite drastically, and we are trying to do something about it. We look after all sorts of problems. We have orphan babies in the spring and autumn, casualties right throughout the year, all sorts of problems. We're trying to do our bit. Hedgehog Helpline started nearly 30 years ago by accident. I've always been interested in wildlife, always had frogs and bugs and beetles and bits and pieces, but I certainly never had a hedgehog, didn't know anything at all about them. One very hot summer's day, I was in my garden pottering about. I just happened to look into the garden of the house next door. It was an empty house with a big overgrown garden, but there's a little patch of grass, and in the middle of this patch of grass was a small shrub, and one branch of this shrub was moving. Very regular. I thought, strange, not a breath of air, what is it? I went to the little boundary fence, clapped my hands. I expected a cat or a bird to come out, nothing. I approached the shrub and it's still moving, the branch is still moving. Opened the branches up and down in the bottom is a hedgehog. And this hedgehog is in trouble. He's got a huge wound on his back. All the spines and prickles on his back had been torn off. And if that wasn't bad enough, it was a heaving mass of maggots. I looked, I thought, I turned around and walked away. I got a couple of paces, my conscience got the better of me, and I thought, I've got to do something. Picked him up, very smelly, went into the house, called my wife, and thankfully she's not somebody worried by smelly, maggoty hedgehogs. Got some disinfectant, a pair of tweezers, I believe a spoon as well, and started scooping out hundreds or thousands of maggots. It took about 10 minutes to clean him up. It wasn't as bad as we thought. It was superficial. It had taken the spines and the skin away, hadn't gone into anything important. By now, the prickly ball that came in was starting to relax, starting to open up a little bit. We are thinking, what's next? We can't put him back out into the wild. We've got a hedgehog for some time. What does he eat? What are we going to feed him on? Well, we knew, even at that time, that you shouldn't give hedgehogs bread and milk. But we had a dog, we had some dog food. Let's see what happens. Put a couple of spoonfuls of food in front of him. He must have been starving. He ate the lot. Right, we've cleaned him up. He's had something to eat. Where are we going to keep him? We had an empty utility room in the basement. We got an old cardboard box, some old towels, put them in, put him down, another dish of food, dish of water. Fingers crossed, let's see what happens, what's going to happen. I've got no idea. Is he going to die overnight? I don't know. Cut a long story short, he certainly didn't. Next morning, very much alive, eaten the food, tipped the water, and made a tremendous mess. Size for size, they must be the muckiest little animals on earth. 3 weeks, wound healed up, new prickles. We've got a hedgehog that's telling us, come on, I need to go. One evening, we put him in a box, took him up the hill behind the house, found a patch of undergrowth, put him down, and he just disappeared. We thought, that's it, we've done our little bit towards helping hedgehogs. But of course, we live in a small village. Everyone knows everyone else. Knock on the door a couple of weeks later, another hedgehog. And that's how it started. By the mid-90s, we decided that we would see if we could become a registered charity. It helps matters. We were successful. We became a charity. We needed a group of trustees. We had to be formal. One of our main or most important trustees is a lady by the name of Sue.
My name is Sue Hancock and I became involved in Hedgehog Helpline about 15 years ago. The shed I think now is about 2 years old. Quite difficult because I work full-time as well, so I have to get up early in the morning. Every hedgehog that comes into us is weighed, their poo is analysed for parasites, so it's quite intense. If there's a problem before I go to work, very often I'm late because I have to do a treatment. I tend to come home in the lunchtime to syringe feed if I have to, and then again in the evening the process starts again, so it's quite hands-on.
We have been making, selling and placing hedgehog nest boxes in suitable areas. This means that we can encourage a hedgehog into the area if they're not there. If there are no hedgehogs at all but the environment is suitable, we will introduce some hedgehogs. It's all a matter of getting people interested, and people really want to be interested. They hate to see the fact that the hedgehogs are disappearing. They want to do something about it. So we are recruiting people to make their gardens hedgehog and other wildlife friendly, and we're finding that it's working very successfully. I would probably look around the garden and see 5 or 6 obvious problems where a hedgehog can die or be killed or injured. And simple things like a cover left off a drain. Hedgehogs very inquisitive, they are mooching around on a night. There's an open drain, at the very least they fall into this drain. They might smell something attractive, they may think there's food in there. They end up down in the drain, there's water in the bottom. If they don't drown, they can't get out and they're going to starve to death. It's as simple as keeping a cover on a drain, on an open drain. The other thing that is very often brought to our attention, what about slug pellets? Does that kill them? They don't eat slug pellets, no problem, but they eat a lot of slugs. It's a major part of their diet. And if each slug that they eat has come into contact with slug pellets, it's a tiny, tiny amount of poison. Not enough to kill them if it's one. But if they eat 50 slugs in a night, and each one has been in contact with slug pellets, the poison accumulates in their system, and it will eventually kill them. Okay, I've got sympathy with gardeners. They've got to do something about the slugs. But there are organic slug pellets. There are other ways of controlling slugs. In fact, the best way of controlling slugs is to make your garden attractive to a hedgehog and get a hedgehog calling through. He'll do a major part in keeping the slugs under control. The helpline has two what we call hospital units. We have one in Portland-Fraith in the Caerphilly, and we have one in Torfaen. And these are our main centres where the problem hedgehogs come, or if a hedgehog needs assessment for a problem. They come to us with all sorts of injuries, some of them life-threatening, some of them maybe parasites, some of them involving orphan babies. They're all different. And we have facilities for dealing with all sorts of problems. We can deal with minor problems ourselves. If it's a wound with maggots, okay, not a problem, we can clean it out. If it's anything more serious, for example, a broken leg, it then needs veterinary attention. We're very fortunate in having a vet as one of our trustees, and we make arrangements. We don't just go tearing down to the vets. It's got to be done diplomatically. We make arrangements, and when there is time, unless it's life-threatening, we will slot it in, and the necessary treatment will be performed. We had a hedgehog amputation last Friday. We had a young hedgehog came in with a broken back leg. It was assessed. It's not always feasible to do it, and sometimes we have to resort to having the hedgehog put to sleep. It may be too serious to really consider doing anything. We've got to consider the hedgehog. We've got to consider quality of life at the end. We found from experience over the years with a youngster with a broken back leg, it can be amputated and it can lead a very, very normal life. The most important thing, they're the one animal that comes into your garden and doesn't run away. You can approach a hedgehog. He's not like a fox, a squirrel or a rabbit which just disappears in most cases. But a hedgehog comes in. If there's a problem, he can curl up into his prickly ball and wait for you to go away, wait for the problem to go away. But once he feels safe and secure, and if there's food available, he will come into your garden and he can be almost a friend, certainly the gardener's friend. It's a great way of introducing youngsters, children to nature. We're always looking for new help. Anyone who can do whatever they can, however small or however big, doesn't matter. And we need help from all areas. Blaenau Gwent is just one of the areas which we don't seem to have anyone at the moment.